What's going on, fam? We are back with another episode. I'm really excited for this one. You guys know my wife, Anna, and baby Shiloh is here. And yeah, we're going to be talking about a topic that a lot of you have been asking questions about, and that is the topic of lust. That is the topic of porn addiction.
Chris posted a video about his testimony with porn addiction, with lust, and I was just inspired to talk about it as well. Because, yeah, it's not something that people are willing to talk about. Maybe that's why I felt like I was shocked when I saw his video, because I was like, yeah.
This is my wife. My wife is shocked about the video that I posted.
Because he was talking about his own story, and I was just like, good for you. But yeah, we do need to talk about it. And the thing about his story is that it's something that I can relate to because our background, we're pretty similar, I think, when it comes to just living in the world before we gave our lives to Jesus and before we got married. So for him talking about porn addiction, I could definitely relate, and it's something that we talked about even before we got married. But I think for me, it didn't linger, I would say. I feel like right after I got married, porn addiction was not a thing anymore.
Let's rewind, though.
Let's rewind.
So that's good context, but how did we start? How did your journey start? What did it look like? What was your first exposure to...
Oh, man. Yeah, we're going to go way back.
Yeah, let's go way back.
So I probably watched porn when I was maybe 9 years old. That's pretty early, but yeah, the first thing that I remember really was just me as a kid opening cabinets. And it was like, I'm not going to mention whose cabinet it was that I opened.
Don't snitch.
But I saw like a lot of DVDs, and it was just like, of naked people. And for me, I had my own sets of DVDs as a kid to play. Always play and just watch.
That you owned?
That I owned. But they're obviously like kids stuff. Like singing. Now you go on YouTube to play, those kids.
Oh, okay. You're not talking about pornography.
Oh,
okay.
no. Kids stuff that I owned. That one I would play every day after school. But this one I saw when I opened someone's cabinet. And of course I was curious, but I already saw what it was going to be about because I saw naked people. But yeah, so I played it and I was like shocked by the things I saw. And I remember watching like an anime version of that. And for me as a kid, it's anime.
Right.
So for me, I was just like, wow.
You saw it already as like a cool thing that you enjoyed.
Yes.
But then it turned into this other thing.
And the crazy thing is, I'm wondering now, nobody saw me play those things. But even when my cousins would come over, I would play it.
Wow.
Because it's just kind of like, okay.
Well, let's pause really quick. How did you even get possession of that?
I told you, the cabinets. I would just open them.
And there was anime porn.
Yeah. Like, it's not like just open, but you have to dig.
Oh, wow.
I've found some crazy things, like doing that. So that's why you got to take care of your things, especially when you have kids, because...
Don't have that in your home.
Yeah. Or don't have that in your home.
Yeah,
yes.
Just don't have it. Just don't partake in it. Heal now so that it's not in the presence of your children. It's not a generational thing that's passed down so easily.
So obviously I was pretty young and I was exposed to that. And it's not a one-time thing. Like I said, every time I would find something, I would play it. And I didn't think that it was bad. I'm trying to think back how I felt about that, but I don't really remember. It was just like a normal thing, a natural thing to do, watch those things. It's not something that I was really hiding. Maybe I was too innocent to even know what to think about that. What do you tell a 9-year-old? So yeah, I was exposed to that. And let's fast forward. I think I started dating middle school. And I didn't do those things, but I was just like, my mind, I feel like, was very sexual.
Already in middle school because of those experiences.
Yeah, I started dating, even though, I didn't do those things yet. I was just like, I want to be with a boy, a man, whatever. So I believe that was 7th grade. And
7th grade, okay.
Yeah, 7th grade. And I mean, it was pretty easy. Boys and girls, you bring them together and it's just like there's attraction. And I remember just like my teachers like being worried for me because I was a good student and I was attracted to the bad boys. So I would date, let's say, someone who had a reputation, and they'd be like, what are you doing with that boy?
Let's pause really quick. What was your porn use like at this point in time?
Oh, I would watch.
Frequently? What did that look like? Like, yeah.
Oh man, I would watch whenever I feel like I wanted to watch.
Okay. Was
Yeah.
that frequently, or that was like once a year, or that
No,
was
now
like...
maybe like once a month even.
Okay.
Because it's there. It's just like you're curious. I was still young, and again, I didn't know how those things feel or anything like that. It was just me watching, just curious.
And were you masturbating at this point as well, or was just watching?
No, I think I was watching. I'll talk about that story.
Okay.
So yeah, middle school was when I was introduced to dating, but in high school, that's when things change, because obviously we're older,
Right.
and you're more curious. At the same time, you're more knowledgeable about things. You can go on the internet and actually find what you want to see. It's so accessible to everyone. And yeah, I was dating again from middle school, but in high school it became more serious because everyone would just be like, oh, you want to lose your virginity to someone. At least in my case, everyone's talking about, oh, I lost my virginity to this person. Like, it wasn't a sacred thing. It was like, you want to lose your virginity now, like, you're cool.
Yeah. It's such a crazy thing how, like, the devil just comes in and makes things that are unhealthy and things that are perverted. And when I say perverted, out of the ways of God. It's crazy how the devil will make those things look cool.
Right.
Like, what is cool? Who defines what that is? Who is the first person that said, yo, being, young and losing your virginity to somebody you don't even really know is cool? You know what I mean? Like, when you think about that, like, at a very, even, like, mature, adult, rational level, it's just like,
What the heck?
who came up with that?
Right.
Because that was the case in my schools as well. Like, that was the cool thing, to be like, yo, like, I'm not a virgin. Or, like, to be a virgin was uncool.
Yeah. Oh, yo, I did it last night with this guy, or I did it last night in my car.
Wow. And, like, the crazier the story, like,
Yeah.
the more clout you would get.
Yeah.
Like, in your friend group, or... That's so wild, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like high school for me was very, like, loud when it comes to sexual things. I'm not sure what it's called when people would earn points by doing crazy things. We talked about that.
Yeah, there's something called not senior assassins, senior something. And basically it's a competition with different teams that are made up of different people in the senior class of high school. And somebody comes up with a list of wild things to do. And
you have to record yourself to do that, to prove that you did it.
And you get points for doing it.
I wasn't that wild. I did not participate in those things, but that is something that I heard often. Oh, these people did this last night. They went to, let's say, the track and field, and they did it there, and all these things. So I was very exposed to those things. So for me, I'm like, okay, sex. It's a thing that you do.
Right. It's just another hobby or another thing that you do to pass the time.
But yeah, let's go back to that story. So for me, that's when, like, porn comes in. I feel like when you're at that stage and, being cool and talking about sex out loud, hey, you want to be good at it. And for me, that's when porn comes in.
So if I could just jump in, that's another source of shame or clout. Like, your ability to perform sexually. I think in my high school experience, that was a huge thing, too.
Yeah.
Like, to be completely transparent, like, I was afraid of sex for that reason, because there was so much talk of, oh, man, he sucked in bed. Right. Like, he was terrible. Or, like, dude, that guy was the best. Or that girl was the best.
I remember I would hear stories, like, details. You know how women talk, too. So, yeah, at that time, I feel like there was that pressure. Going back to it, like, there was pressure to perform. Like,
and if I could just jump in one more time.
Yeah.
So your value is measured by how well you performed in bed.
Isn't this crazy that if people hear about you being good, they want to do you too?
That's crazy.
So it's just, oh man, she's good. People want you too. It's what would you describe? It's a disgusting thing, really. Now that I look back, distorted. Perverted. Yeah, and
just twisted in every way, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like thinking about it now. Is it still like that? And it probably is worse.
It's probably worse. Yeah. So it's probably worse, and the other side of it is that society is growing more and more disconnected because of social media. So like even like I think it's Japan, right? Japan, like pornography is such an epidemic that people aren't having sex. They watch stuff and they have their fetish or they have their whatever, and like they're fine with just masturbating or just watching
Pleasing
stuff, pleasing themselves.
Yeah. So, yeah, going back to my story in high school, that's when I watched more. Just, I can't believe I'm going to say this, just to learn.
It was educational.
Yeah, it was educational for me. And I did hear about, like, when it comes to porn, women watch to be educated. I'm not sure if I remember that correctly. But with women, I feel like, speaking for myself, I watched to learn. But then when I finally started doing it, it was just like that's when the feelings with it came, and you're just like, oh, this feels good, so I want to do it.
Right.
But that's when addiction comes in, and you're just like, you want to do it all the time. And if it's with someone, great. If it's not with anybody, you can please yourself as well. And my mindset definitely changed because it became just like something that I did.
If I could jump in one more time, because I think a lot of this happens when there's no education or value system taught to children or taught to teens, right? So because, and I think this was the case for the both of us, because there was no standard or teaching that was explicitly given by our parents, the only narrative and the only understanding we had was what the world taught us.
And I'm not going to say that my parents didn't tell me not to do it.
Okay.
Maybe they said just no, don't do it. And that's not enough.
That's not education.
When it comes to kids, children, no means nothing, really, I think. You need to explain to them. It cannot be an authoritarian no. No because I said so. It has to be no because it's not good for you, and you talk about it, again, in an educational way. But yeah, for me, it's not something that you talked about. It's just something that you shouldn't do. That's what I heard growing up. You shouldn't do it. But yeah, I was exposed to it, and I'm coming from a very strict household. I think my dad is very strict, but I found ways to sneak out, to do those things. I lied. And again, I had a relationship with God, but not in that way. Like, I believed in God, but I didn't know what God said about these things. I thought you can be a good person and do these things, and it's fine. And I remember even when we met at Rutgers.
That just came into my mind too.
What was it?
So I was a Christian before Anna was, in terms of a committed follower of Jesus. And I remember we met in class at Rutgers, and eventually I think I invited her to a Bible study or something on campus. And we had a Bible study on, I don't know if it was about lust or if it was about something in that regard. But at the time I was reading a book called The Wait by Devon Franklin and Megan Good. And basically in that book, they're talking about how it is worth waiting to be married before you have sex. And they talk about the benefits of it. They talk about how their relationship was more fulfilling because...
And they talk about how it's from the Bible.
Yeah, and they share biblical principles and how, it's God's will. And basically, I was reading through that at the time. I was in the process of overcoming my porn addiction at that time. And after reading that book, I had just really become increasingly convicted. I'm not going to have sex before marriage. And I remember that conversation came up in a Bible study we had, one of our first Bible studies that we had together, but we were, obviously in a group context. And I remember sharing that openly. I have been reading this book, and I just, we shouldn't have sex before marriage because we shouldn't create soul ties and deep emotional ties to somebody that we're not going to be in covenant with for the rest of our lives, because you create a soul tie, and if you're not going to be with that person for the rest of your life, you're giving away a part of yourself to that person, and it takes away from your relationship with whoever you're going to marry. And I just remember Anna was there, and Anna, again, this was one of her first Bible studies that she was attending, at least with my group. And she was like, oh man, I could never do that. She said something along the lines of like, how are you going to know if you're compatible, or how are you going to know if
the person's good? Like, how can you be... My mindset was, how about if the person is bad? Like, I'm stuck with that person if they're bad in bed. That was my worry, and that was my mindset. And that's so crazy because obviously now when you love each other, those things come like naturally. It's so natural. And sex was created to be done with that person that you're married with and to just share and to learn together as well. Yeah, it was so crazy that I thought that, oh man, I need to know if you're good first.
Right. So I've been talking about this with some of my clients. Some of you guys know that I'm a mental health coach. I also work with people who are trying to overcome porn addiction. And I was talking to somebody about this, that intimacy is something that we're wired for. God created us for intimacy because literally when he created all of the earth, he said everything was good. After each day that he created, he sat back and he looked at it and he said, it is good. The one thing in the book of Genesis that he says it is not good is in the context of him talking about Adam, where he says it is not good for man to be alone because he didn't have a partner. So he created Eve for him to be that helper, that partner. So God created us for intimacy. God did not create us to be isolated, to be alone. Like, we're created for intimacy and for community. So inside of us, there is this deep God-given human need for intimacy. And intimacy is basically just a feeling and sense of closeness to another human being, and to God as well. Because of our separation from God, because of sin, we have, number one, that lack of intimacy with God, but also that leads us to shame and guilt, which isolates us from each other, right? We're very closed off to other people when we feel shame. And that's what the devil wants. He wants us to feel shame because he knows that the antidote to shame is actually connection. And the antidote to addiction is actually connection as well. Intimacy is our deep need, and what the devil has done is he has given a counterfeit version of intimacy through pornography, through fornication, through adultery, which involves no commitment, and it doesn't involve God in the process, right? So the deepest fulfillment of intimacy is found in covenant, which is a sacred agreement between you, your spouse, and God, which allows you to experience intimacy at the deepest level, but it's also like God's design for sex. There's nothing more intimate than sex. If intimacy is a feeling and a sense of closeness emotionally and physically to somebody, like, sex is literally like, like, you're inside each other. Like, you can't get closer than that. So that's intimacy. But without love, without covenant, divine commitment as the foundation, now you have this deep connection with this person, but it's false because you're not actually connected, because you separate yourselves after you leave the party or after you leave your summer fling or whatever you want to call it.
So, yeah, see, you talking about this, right, and what God has to do with it. I mean, again, my response to Chris during that time was, there's no way I would wait. There's no way I'm going to do that. But did you force it on me? No. Like, I had to grow this relationship with God in order to understand that, in order to be like, oh, okay, now I'm going to wait before marriage to do it.
Because you began to walk with Jesus and he began to teach you on a rational level, on a logical level, like, you've experienced unhealthy relationships.
And that's why it's so important to educate people. And it's not enough, again, to say, no, hey, you can't do it. No, it's bad for you. No, why?
Time.
I don't believe in that. Again, for me, I came from a strict household. So the answer was always no. I was always not allowed to do anything, but I did everything because I found a way to do it. I would sneak out, all of these things because I did not understand the principle behind it. I did not know that these things are actually damaging. Again, the world will tell you it's okay to watch porn. It makes things spicy between you and your partner.
I've heard that.
Obviously, now we know that's not true. Imagine allowing a person in your bedroom. The person's not there, but the person's in your head.
In your heart.
In your heart, in your head. When you watch these things, and then you do this intimate thing with your partner, and that person is there.
In your heart.
During that process. Like, how messed up is that?
Physically, you're with your partner, but in your heart, you're with another person.
multiple, just
From
because
multiple other people, yeah.
who watches one thing?
Oh, yeah,
Who
no.
watches one thing? Let's be honest.
If somebody's watching, they're, yeah. Many times you're binging or you're watching multiple videos.
Yeah, so my life was just dating and then doing those things and really not understanding the principle behind waiting until marriage. So for me, I believe I was transformed when I gave my life to Jesus. Not everything stopped. I mean, you would still feel things and there's that urge to watch.
Temptation is never going to go away. As even if you're free from pornography for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, temptation is still very much in this world. Jesus was tempted in Matthew chapter 4. I'm not saying it was pornography or lust necessarily, but Jesus felt and experienced temptation. And temptation is only temptation if there's actually a genuine desire to potentially go through with sin. Right? So because Jesus was living in a fallen human body, he experienced temptation. And as long as we have a fallen human body, we are going to experience temptation. Does that mean we have to say yes to it? No, not necessarily. But it does mean that this is part of the reality we live in. And that is why the blood of Jesus is the only thing that can save us. Because if it was based on our perfection or our, complete obedience in utter perfection towards, God, none of us would make it. Romans chapter 3 says, all have fallen short of the glory of God, right? So it is by grace through faith that we are saved, right? Through Jesus' sacrifice. That's the only thing that can get you into the kingdom.
And for me, I'm just trying to go back with my own experience, right? How I was able to just stop doing all those things. I mean, going to parties, had to go. Going to parties, getting drunk, because when you're drunk, you do things that you don't really remember or you're not in control of. Yeah, for me, I believe I have done things just because I was tipsy. I was under that influence of alcohol. So for me, self-discipline was a big part of overcoming and just saying no to the world in that way.
What did that look like for you? Was that an easy process to stop going to parties and stop drinking? Or because you're saying that was kind of the bridge to, sexual experiences.
I think it was easier for me because there was a community like you guys. I had you guys, like the young adults, right, to hang out with. Because if you're going to tell someone, hey, forget your past, forget those friends that party all the time, and then what? You have to fulfill that space that's now empty, right? And for me, I was able to just focus on church. And again, I was just so excited to learn more about God, reading the Bible, because I gave up drinking March of 2019, and I gave my life to God August of 2019. So there's this process of, okay, I'm going to remove this from my life, and then this, and then this, and then other things became easier.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, I was perfect. Like when I said I wasn't going to watch porn again, I never watched it again. Maybe there were times. I remember you in your testimony, you said one time you couldn't sleep. And then your mind started wandering, right? And then
Idleness.
So, of course, those things happened. But it's been a while. It's been a while. And again, it's a process. But
Yeah.
that it's something that you're supposed to be willing to go through, that process of healing.
Yeah.
But I would say, for me, I think it was easier to overcome. I don't know
Okay.
if it was because I'm a female.
Elaborate on that. I think that's a great topic, to be honest.
It's still something that I'm trying to understand, because before, when you would tell me that you're still struggling and it's such a strong feeling, I'm like, I couldn't understand what he meant by that, because I was so selfish in my way of thinking that, oh, if I overcame, you better overcome too. I'm here, you have me, and I have you, and I'm done with that. How come you're not done with that? That was my mindset. So for me, I'm like, I started thinking maybe males are different than females. I don't know. I think biologically, yes, that's why. But for me, it was
What do you mean by that? Let's go into detail.
more testosterone, like you said. Like we've talked about
Testosterone. Yep.
this, right? And for,
Testosterone is a hormone that leads to sex drive.
and I think with women, we need emotional connection.
Okay.
For men, I feel like, physical attractiveness and you start feeling things.
Yeah.
You see someone like,
And I believe men are more visual as
right,
well.
right. And this is not all men, this is not all women.
Yeah, no, this
but
isn't a flat out rule for everybody, but it's generally correct.
So, yeah. So for me, I was just mad at the fact that you weren't completely like 110% healed from this when we started talking again. Because, Chris is a very open person.
Yeah.
Like he would tell me, hey, I did this. He would confess to me. And I appreciate that. But then at the same time, since I was struggling with my own insecurities because of my past, those things would kind of like poke at me like, hey, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. That's why he's out there doing these things. So for him, he had to experience this healing from, again, with like porn addiction. But for me, I had to really focus on being secure in my
Yeah.
identity in God.
Yeah.
Because again, my issue was I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. That's why he's doing these things.
And that's why what is it called? Betrayal. Right? Like a lot of spouses or partners or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, at any stage will feel betrayed, especially if you've been cheated on, especially if you've experienced betrayal in a relationship context where you've seen unfaithfulness. Like it's very common for that partner, whoever experienced that trauma of betrayal, for them to feel that same sense of betrayal, to feel re-triggered when their partner watches pornography.
And with my lifestyle, I mean, cheating and betrayal, I experienced that multiple times. I mean, the people that I met, the people that I dated, obviously, again, going back to finding those people in the wrong places, then, yeah, you'll find the wrong people.
Wrong
So-
people are in the wrong places.
Yeah. So for me, I had a lot of issues with my self-worth, with insecurity, and then add on to that him telling me, hey, like I'm struggling with this. And I'm like, dang, this is not, it's just was not easy. It was not
Right.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So porn addiction, lust addiction, it's not, the deception that the devil brings in is that, yo, it's just you. Like this isn't gonna hurt anybody. You just do it for
Yes.
you,
Oh my
and like
gosh,
you're
that's so
you're
true.
you're gonna feel good, and then you're gonna be done, and then you just
That's
go
it.
on and live your life.
Right.
But no, like there's so many studies. Fight the New Drug is a movement that is growing, that is speaking up against porn addiction and the harmful effects of it. But it impacts your own self-esteem when you watch porn. It impacts your own energy levels, your own motivation, your own positive outlook on life.
Maybe expectations.
Yeah, expectations of yourself sexually, expectations
Of
of
your partner.
your partner sexually, which again, porn is not real life. Porn is literally fabricated content.
People acting.
It's acting. So and yeah, there's a whole other side of it where a lot of porn stars are trafficked, people that are sex trafficked, and they're doing it against their will. So you don't see that, right, behind the camera. But essentially, it impacts your marriage. It impacts your relationship. Even if you're just a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or fiance. Before me and Anna were married, like I was in the process of, overcoming that. And yeah, it was just, even when we weren't married, like it impacted her on a deep level,
Oh yeah.
and this is something that is not light. It's something that carries with you into your marriage. So don't think that now that you have, especially men, and I'll talk about men. Sometimes we think that, okay, I'm going to get married in a couple months, like now I'm going to have all the sex I want and I have this outlet in my wife, and basically like we objectify our spouse. And basically we think that, oh man, like once I have that, I'll be fine. Once I have that, available, I'm going to overcome this thing easily. But that's not true, because like pornography is literally feeding lust. A marriage relationship, like sex in a marriage relationship, is love, ideally, right? Obviously, lust can be carried into that. But the point is that just because now you're married doesn't mean that that thing is going to go away.
Just go away, yeah.
That thing sticks with you, even when you're in marriage. So I would suggest and encourage all of you, especially those who are single, maybe you're engaged, maybe you're just dating right now. Now is the time to overcome this thing, to break this addiction, to uproot this lust, because it's not going to go away once you're married. And
it's something that you really want to tackle now. Like, hey, I want to heal from this, because if you don't do that now, you're going to hurt the partner that you end up with in life, and
your kids.
And it's not going to be pretty.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just something that you don't want to experience. And for me, as someone who, was hurt by that, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody.
Right.
And I started reading up on it, like when you said that when you get married, it just doesn't go away. It's not like that. Like, there's so many articles that talk about women that are married, and they're like, what do I do? My husband's doing this, my husband's watching porn, and I just, feel like I'm worth nothing. And there's so many articles that talk about these things.
What's the official name for that? Is it betrayal trauma, or I think there's a name for it. There's a label. No?
I'm not sure. I don't remember. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I was one of those people that were kind of like reading up on it at 2 a.m. in the morning because I couldn't sleep. And definitely it affected the way I looked at you.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted you to heal from this thing. And yeah, it affects trust.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't trust your partner,
right?
Like you said, what are we if you don't trust me?
Right. That's deep. Sheesh. Because trust is the foundation of every relationship. And if you can't trust your partner to be faithful to you, bro, like what is there? So it's like learning to overcome this before you get into marriage is huge, because whatever you're living, whatever you're doing before you become married, it only becomes amplified once you get married. It doesn't go away. That is a lie. That is a deception. It does not go away. You need to do the work now. Or if you're already married, you need to do the work now. Now is the time.
I mean, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, don't delay this. Don't push it off. Like, this is a serious thing. And honestly, I think I saw a statistic that says that married couples that have one of the partners addicted to pornography, they are twice as likely to get a divorce than a marriage that does not have porn addiction involved.
I believe it. If my faith in God was not,
I mean,
strong.
even with your faith in God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Imagine you have your relationship with Jesus, but your partner is addicted for how long? That's discouraging. And that's you getting hurt over and over and over again. And Jesus says that there's grounds for divorce when there's adultery involved.
That's true.
And he also says in Matthew chapter 5 or 6 that if you even lust after somebody in your heart, you have already committed adultery.
And that's what it is with pornography.
That's pornography. That is literally committing adultery in your heart. So it's like, yeah, that's not your spouse. That's not your partner. And I think the devil has made it difficult, to be honest, with social media, with TikTok, with all these, apps and websites now. Like, there's so many different, like, it used to be just like porn sites, but now it's like everywhere that literally, even like bridges to pornography. Like you'll have people on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever that will post stuff, and basically they're promoting their own porn channel or porn website or whatever it is, because it's a $1 billion industry. I mean, I saw a statistic where there was this one girl, I think it was OnlyFans, that she made more in a year than the top 5 NBA players in the NBA made altogether.
Yeah.
Like,
There's some money. There's so much money.
there's
in this
money
thing.
because the devil capitalizes on our weakness. And the devil will use people and give them money and financial wealth and prosperity in this world if they take advantage of the sinful nature of other people.
And that's crazy because the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yep.
So if the devil is like dangling money
Right.
in front of you like this, and that's what you want, I mean,
Right.
you're going to do it too.
And there's so many people, it's so sad, like especially young women, that have trauma. Either they've, weren't fully embraced emotionally by their parents, or their parents abandoned them, or
And then they look for their worth.
or they don't know their worth. And then they see that they get attention through OnlyFans or people that are paying them, to produce content for them specifically or whatever it is. And they will literally get they get attention, they get affirmation, and they get a huge check. So then they're like, oh my goodness, like finally somebody notices me, somebody appreciates me, and I'm getting paid.
Yeah, it's so twisted because the devil is like saying, see, this is what's your worth.
This is your worth. But that is not, your worth is far beyond
Beyond that.
like, the devil just wants you to be a slave to sin. And he wants to use you as a puppet to make other people fall into sin. Right? Jesus himself said, if you make another disciple stumble and fall into sin, it is better for you to tie a millstone around your neck
And drown.
and to be thrown into the sea. Like, just meditate on that for a second. This is heavy, and like, I'm gonna just say it straight. Jesus is literally saying it's better for you to commit suicide than to make other people actively fall into sin and to make that your life.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's a heavy statement.
Yeah, that's
But
wild.
literally that is what Jesus says. This is not, I'm not sugarcoating it. So it is not a small thing to make other people stumble. It is not a small thing. But again, many people who are in these industries, it's because of trauma. And that's why, like, I know we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Like, this is the devil that is literally, taking advantage of broken people. People who don't know any better. People that have never experienced God, have never experienced a healthy relationship. And he's giving them these things to lure them into a life that is demonic, that is evil. Like I remember seeing this Instagram reel where it's like a picture of like a naked or like half naked model or something. And then like the other picture is like, if you were able to see the spiritual realm, this is what you would actually see. And it's literally like a demon, like this ugly, scary demon possessing this, beautiful looking human being, and it's just like, man, the devil knows. And when you look at scripture, you just see constantly, especially men, like you look at Solomon, you look at David, you look at all of these men of God
that
fall into sin, that literally give up their legacy, give up their inheritance, give up whatever for a moment of pleasure.
It's strong stuff.
It's a strong thing, and the devil knows. And I think that's why we're passionate about talking about this openly, because 1 John chapter 1 literally says that when we come into the light with these things, right, because we hide in darkness, we hide in shame, we keep it in secret. When we come into the light, we literally expose it in God's presence, and it loses power over us, and he covers us with his blood. Meaning, when we confess openly, like, God, this is what I've been doing, like, I'm sorry, like, this is wrong. Like, even just doing that, praying that, is literally you giving it to God. And 1 John 1:9 says that when we confess our sin, he is faithful, meaning he's going to do it every time. And he is just to forgive us and to cleanse us from all of our sin.
Amen.
So if you come into the light openly with your sin, with your, struggles, that is when you begin to, when it begins to lose its grip on you. And that text also says, I think it's 1 John chapter 1, verse 7. Not only does the blood of Jesus cover you, which means that he died in your place for the sin that you just committed, but it also means that it also says that you come into fellowship with one another. Meaning, when I'm struggling and I admit and confess what I'm struggling with or the sin that I committed to my wife, it gives her the opportunity to forgive, to love, and it brings us closer, right? Because it's when we're hidden, when we're ashamed, that we separate ourselves from each other emotionally, right? But when we confess and allow the other person the opportunity to forgive, to embrace you, that is when community takes place.
And that's the thing about you, right?
Yeah.
When you would fall before, you would tell me. And again, my issue is just like, man, like I'm still working on myself too.
You have your own wounds
But at the same time,
when it comes to betrayal, specifically.
but at the same time, I really like appreciate that, because being cheated on and me finding out that the other person cheated without them telling me, it's just me finding out. That's like it breaks
the
you.
worst.
It's
Yeah.
like it's very damaging.
Right.
So yeah, you really, as husband and wife, it's so important to address the problem, to really
Yeah.
be open with each other, and just to hold the other person accountable.
And to be mindful of how you share. Because sometimes I remember I would just be so blunt and I would share something with Anna and she would just shut down. And I've had to learn how to package it and say it in such a way where you can like process it and digest it. Right? Because yes, be transparent, live in the light with God and with your partner, but also like don't just communicate it like carelessly.
Yeah, not like, oh,
Yeah.
I did it, but I just won't do it again. Like,
Yeah.
no, you can't just be it. It hurts the other person, so you need to know how to deliver it. You need to
Right.
know your partner, so that you know how to deliver it to them in the way that they'll understand, and not just kind of like hurt them so much. Like you said in the beginning, you were so blunt because
Yeah.
that's your philosophy. Like, get it out there.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm like, oh man, like
I
it's like I
prioritized
was being shot.
yeah, I prioritized my freedom, which there's a good thing in communicating it, right? But there's a wisdom that allows you to confess, but also do it in such a way where you have the other person in consideration, right? The other person's heart and their mind, because it does hurt. It does hurt. So, yeah. And I just want to let you guys know that I am now a certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach.
Yay!
I've been certified and I've been trained to work with people to help people overcome their porn addiction. You can book a free 30-minute session with me in the description. I have the link there. But my goal really is to help people overcome this thing, because this thing has taken advantage of so many people. And this needs to stop. This
And-
needs to stop.
And the fact that you have like that Christian background as
Yes,
well.
so it's a faith-based, practice that I have, coaching program.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially for us Christians. You know, we look at the world differently. I mean, we're supposed
It's
to.
a different worldview
Yeah,
than
we're
a
supposed
secular
to.
psychologist or yeah. So yeah, therapy, coaching, is a beautiful thing, but just find somebody that it's grounded in your worldview. And a lot of you who are watching this are Christian, so find somebody that has a Christian worldview, somebody who understands theology, understands scripture, because many of the values and tools and things communicated are not scriptural, right? Like, for example, I was watching for the certification, they were sharing different perspectives that different therapists and counselors have, and one of them was saying that watching pornography every once in a while is not a bad thing.
I mean,
They were saying that
What?
recreational porn use is okay, but it's when it becomes an addiction and it interferes with your daily life and your relationships, that's when it's an issue. I disagree wholeheartedly with
I
that.
disagree too.
Jesus disagrees wholeheartedly with that. So that's why it's important to have a faith-based or a Christian or whatever, faith you belong to, mental health coach or counselor to help you, understand how to overcome in the context of your worldview. Because if you just meet with somebody from a different worldview, you're most likely going to hear some, philosophies and values that are contrary to what you believe. And, when we're in a sensitive place, we are very impressionable. So,
yeah.
yeah. So this was a great conversation. Thank you for your vulnerability.
For
I know
sure.
this is it's a deep conversation. It's
It's just something that needs to be talked about, and that's why
Yeah.
again, I just felt inspired to share my story, even though it's not very detailed. I feel like,
well, there's so much to talk about.
so much
I
to
mean,
talk
we're
about, that's true.
50 minutes in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say, I don't know if I said this earlier, but like for my Christian sisters out there, if you are with somebody that is pressuring you to do that, to have sex with them, again, run the other way.
That's a red flag.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest red flag.
Yeah, it's just, that's the devil, really straight up.
If they don't respect your boundaries, they won't respect your boundaries, like in any area. Like that's, their motives aren't right if they're pressuring you or pushing you to have sex.
And again, just being unequally yoked with the person, if they're pushing you to do that, I mean, if they really want you, like go through the process of getting to know each other, like premarital counseling, and then
Which I offer as well.
which you offer as well, and then get married if you really love the other person. Like, man, just go through the process and commit, because this world lacks commitment.
Oh, that's a word.
The people nowadays, man, they just don't know what the word commitment means now. Like, just commit.
Yeah.
Like,
That's deep.
I'm getting mad.
Bro, go in, please.
I don't know. It's been 50 minutes.
It's all right.
But yeah, if the person is not willing to commit, why are you gonna give yourself in that way? And
Wow.
if you just give yourself in that way, they can literally run the next day
Yeah.
and be like, all right, on to the next one. If it's that easy, right? These people, you know what they're thinking? Hey, if it's that easy, I'm gonna get each one of them. And again, there's this mindset out there that says the more women that I've had sex with, the more trophies I have, right?
Right, for men,
For men.
especially. Well, for women, for some women as well.
Yeah. Do
Gotta
you
point it up.
do you want to be one of those women, that's just like, okay, one and done, move on? And I have heard that before. And they're just saying like, yeah, it doesn't really matter, like you just do it and then that's it. Please, there's so much damage internally that they're not even aware of at that moment. It's gonna come out. And
Damage in who? Who are you talking
like their identity.
You're talking about for those women who give themselves over to sex with whoever.
Like, some people are just so proud of the numbers, the body count that they have.
Right.
It just blows my mind.
Once you mature, that it flips.
Yeah.
Once you actually mature as a person, the body count is actually a thing that you kind of become ashamed of.
Yeah. Well, we don't want shame.
We don't want shame, but I'm saying like it's not a good
that
thing.
you're
It's
proud
not
of.
something to be proud of.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, you want to be with someone who knows commitment, who wants to really be with you, and who's willing to go through that process of just like, hey, you're the person I want to be with for the rest of my life. And if they still say that and they still want to have sex with you, like before marriage.
Well, let's address this because sometimes the feeling is mutual. Let's talk about
Okay,
that.
okay, talk about it. What do you mean?
Sometimes Christian followers of Jesus that are in a relationship, that love Jesus, that want to follow Jesus, feel temptation to have sex with their partner because they love their partner, or they do have sex with their partner. And this is something to talk about too, because
Then it becomes a natural thing where, see, we did it already.
because this takes away from the meaning of what a covenant actually is. When you are in covenant with somebody, right, meaning you are married to somebody and you have this experience, you know that this is a gift and a blessing from God, and that God's blessing is on it. But subconsciously, if you know that you're not supposed to be having sex because you're not married, which again, this is what Scripture teaches, which is a formal covenant agreement between the both of you before God. That is marriage, right? And it is consummated, or it is sealed with sex, right? So basically, to have sex before marriage, and I'm speaking to Christians who, have good intentions, who are new creations, who follow Jesus, yet they struggle with their flesh. I just want to say to you that you are devaluing your covenant once you get there. And sometimes people feel like, oh, well, like there's really no point to even get married because we're already here.
Oh, man.
Or you say like, yo, like in my heart, I'm already married to this person.
All right, if you're already married to this person, why not take that step to actually get married?
Right.
I mean, for us, for example, let's just share it, right?
Yeah.
Before we had our big wedding, we had our, what is it called?
Civil wedding.
Civil wedding.
And let's just keep it real.
Let's just keep
We experienced temptation.
Yeah. I mean, from both of our backgrounds, right?
We were tempted to have sex. I would even say that we went further than we wanted to at certain points in time.
Although we waited.
We didn't have, sex, but we went further than we wanted to go before marriage. And we got convicted about it, and we said, you know what? We're doing wrong in the eyes of God. Let's have a civil wedding ASAP. Literally. Because we just wanted to be right before God. So we decided to go to the court, to the municipal court. We invited our immediate family. We had a civil wedding. It was beautiful. It was great.
It was beautiful.
We even had a mini moon.
That was the best part.
Which is like a honeymoon, but it wasn't like a full honeymoon. It was just like a weekend getaway, whatever. So we got married in the court. We had our pastor present there. He prayed a blessing over us and did, kind of led us through the spiritual aspect of it. We got married. We went, had our mini moon, and we had sex with peace in our hearts. Yes or no? Let's just keep it real. We're being vulnerable here.
Yeah.
So my point is, you're deceiving yourself. You're playing yourself to say, oh, yeah, nah, we're having sex right now. We're not married.
We're committed, but not married.
But in our hearts, we're already married.
Yeah,
Nah, bro.
it doesn't work like that.
You need to bring that before God.
Like, actually do it.
And you need to just solidify that.
I like that. Solidify that. Because we hear that a lot. We hear that, oh, we're like committed to each other and marriage is on the way. But I mean, we know that we want to be with each other. That's it.
Right.
I mean, then get married tomorrow.
Get married. Have your civil wedding.
If you
have
really
your
can't
celebration later.
I mean, it's better to do that than burn in lust and commit sin in your mind anyway.
What is that, 1 Corinthians 7? I think we read that in the process, right? I think when I was in Michigan, I was in seminary, and we were talking about this because we were struggling with temptation. And literally, like, I think it's in 1 Corinthians 7. Can we pull it up?
Okay.
In the NLT? Bro, this text is going to set somebody free.
Okay, so it says, wait. So 1 Corinthians 7:36 says, but if a man thinks that he's treating his fiancée improperly and will inevitably give into his passion, let him marry her as he wishes. It is not a sin.
Let me just read that one more time. I feel this right here. What did I say? 1 Corinthians 7:36. This is Paul speaking to the Corinthian church. Corinth was almost like a Las Vegas of their time, of their context, right? It was just known for sexual immorality, so much so that Paul was writing to their church saying, yo, you guys are okay with this guy sleeping with his father's wife. What are y'all doing? Y'all aren't, disciplining him. You're not talking to him. You're not doing anything. What's going on? So, 1 Corinthians 7:36. If a man thinks that he's treating his fiancée improperly and will inevitably give in to his passion, what is this talking about? If you are engaged, so even scripture acknowledges engagement. If you are engaged and you believe that you are committing sin, you guys are lusting after each other, you're having sex, you're having sexual activity.
You're doing everything, like marriage.
Yeah. If a man thinks that he's treating his fiancée improperly and will inevitably give in to his passion, let him marry her as he wishes. It is not a sin. Paul is literally saying, listen, just get married and y'all will be good. But if y'all are engaged, if y'all are just dating, if y'all are not even dating, you're just have a situationship and y'all are having sex or y'all are having sexual activity, maybe it's not penetration, maybe it's something else, oral or whatever, it is better for you to marry than to give in to your passion. Meaning, Paul is declaring that this is sin.
Yeah.
It is sin in your engagement to have sex and sexual activity. Like, this is huge because Jesus says in Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount, he says, even if you lust after somebody in your heart, you are committing adultery. How much more, or he says that, and then he says, it is better for you to cut off your hand or your eye or whatever it is that's leading you into sin than for your whole body to be cast into hell. He's saying that about lusting in your heart. How much more is he speaking to the engaged, to the dating, to the, situationship that is engaged in sexual activity outside of the covenant marriage?
Yeah. There's no such thing as like, what is it called? Like engagement and that's it.
Right. So this is, we're just having a real candid conversation.
Yeah.
And we're saying this because it's so common.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many people that I know personally, so many people all over the world, even, George Janko, right? We're talking about him and his fiance. They have a podcast, where the George Janko show, where they were struggling and they were engaged and they were saying, yo, we're pushing this thing off. And then I think they had somebody come on and say, like, nah, like, y'all got to get married. And they felt convicted and they did it. They got married. So we're just out of love. We're not trying to like condemn. We're not trying to point fingers. Like, out of love, we're saying like, yo, you're in sin. And like, it's not, and the reason why I'm passionate about this is because it's not hard. If y'all are in it already, yo, like, it's not hard to go to the courthouse, or, you know what I mean? And it doesn't take away from being able to have that ceremony, that celebration.
I think the hardest part was for me to just find that date, like that opening, because I think it was like a busy time.
In the courthouse?
Yeah, because just like, oh, let's just do it. Let's just get married. And I was like trying to find that date that is open for the courthouse. And that was the earliest time that I could find. May 1st.
Yeah, May 1st, yeah. May 1st, we had our civil wedding because we were struggling with temptation. We were engaged and we said, nah, we can't do this. We need to get married. So she booked the place. We got it done. And we had our mini moon. We were able to enjoy a little getaway.
It was beautiful just because I'm an overthinker. I stress easily. And that was just kind of like, wow, done.
Yeah,
And
it was done. And then we were at peace. And we could enjoy that gift with peace in our hearts, knowing that God's blessing was on it, because God is the one who invented sex, not Satan. So his blessing was on it. The marriage bed was undefiled, as Paul says. And we were able to have our big celebration, our bigger wedding with our family and our friends a couple months later. We had it June 18th.
Not
After
a couple
that,
months,
May 1st.
yeah, a month and a half.
Yeah. So Yeah, this is just, oh man, there's so much to say regarding this, but we just feel passionate about this because we desire for people to have fulfilling relationships and for people to have relationships that have God's blessing on it. So we're just sharing from our experience. We're sharing very vulnerably because we believe that there's freedom in the light, and we want to demonstrate that, by example. And
And the peace
Yeah.
that comes with it.
there's peace that comes with knowing that you're in God's will. And there's a blessing that comes with, peace is one of the blessings, but there's many other blessings that come with being in God's will. So, yeah, you guys got a little bit of bonus. We weren't even going to talk about, that whole last part, but it's super relevant to this conversation. So, yeah, man. Shiloh's chilling right now. Thank God. The Holy Spirit.
She likes this thing.
She's looking at it. The little portable mic with the fluff on it. Shiloh, you want to say something for them?
Say hi. Give them a smile. Look at that.
Say something, Mama.
Smile. Hi.
Say something. She's shy.
Are you shy?
At some point, she's going to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
At some point, she'll be the one hosting the pod.
Look at that smile.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
There you go. She spoke. That's her piece.
There you go. That's all we have, I believe.
Yeah.
For today.
So thank you guys for sticking with us. This was great. This was a really good conversation. I really hope that you received some value from this. In the description as well, I'm going to link my free 30-day devotional called The Truth of Who You Are. The purpose of it is literally for you to know your identity in Christ. The devil has allowed us to be in churches, to be professed Christians without us really knowing who we are in Christ and the inheritance that we have in Christ. It's a very simple read. It's a daily devotional, so it's a small reading each day for 30 days. And it's just made up of the truths that really impacted me and set me free from self-esteem issues, from performance anxiety, from, all of that. So check that out. Free 30-minute one-on-one session as well. I'm putting in the chat, or in the description, So yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.